A very warm welcome, everybody. Welcome to Ultimate Pool Extra. And it's a very special show this week because it's going to be a review show of the WEPF World Championships, which has happened over the last couple of weeks. Scott Ryan joins me this week. It's just the two of us, and we're going to look back at every single event that has happened, try and work out what happened, why it happened, and review it that way. Scott, great to have you on the show as always. Been a busy old 2 weeks.
Yeah, certainly. Literally, I've virtually not left my flat through watching all of the pool coverage, and it was absolutely phenomenal to see the World Championships get the coverage that it's deserved over the years. I've spoken about it many times. I grew up during the Sky Sports era where it was pre-recorded, and you saw the finals from quarterfinals onwards a couple of weeks after, up to the streaming era where kind of it was covered, but it just wasn't covered as in depth. I've had a ball watching it, Simon. I've also had a ball texting you during the tournament. It was a truly brilliant tournament with so many magical moments and some iconic shots and iconic moments that will live with us forever.
Yeah, it really was. You mentioned the coverage, 9 days of comprehensive coverage, including the big show with the World Team Shootout in the middle, which was live on TV. I mean, it's a big step forward. It certainly felt from my perspective as part of that team that was bringing it that it was a good step, but there's a lot more we can do. And I'm excited and already got my head for thinking about what we can do in Morocco next time out.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. It's finally feeling like it's becoming a World Championships because it's traveling around the world. I'm certainly hoping to make the trip to Morocco myself. I've been really impressed when I've ever seen videos of crowds in Morocco in particular. But listen, let's give a massive shout out to that Irish contingent over there. I was absolutely kind of overwhelmed watching it on TV at points. I'm going to mention it, particularly when the Randall sisters were playing. There was a different match on the stream table, but all you could hear was the Irish cheering their girls on, which was absolutely just incredible.
Yeah, I think the Irish Pool Association and all the Irish there really did a good job. Mark Scally, very new into the role as chairman of the IPA, and a new team around him that really had to work hard to put this together for the World Championships, alongside the WEPF and Ultimate Pool, who are a big part of doing that as well. So I think it's just a massive collective effort. But I think it just shows that the ties are there, and hopefully they get stronger and grow over time. Let's look back at what actually happened on the table, though, because there was so many events we do need to dive in. We're going to run through every single section, every single event that was played, but no apologies for starting right at the top. The two big team events. Let's start with the ladies' team event. England went in there as the sort of perennial favourites. South Africa were the defending champions. No surprise to see it come down to those two in the final. England got over the line, which I know you're happy with because you picked them this week, Scott. But yeah, England were they managed to, I keep saying they got their title back, which is how it feels with the number of times they've won it before.
Yeah, and the overall strength and depth of that England team, it was absolutely no surprise to see them win the World Championships. They were led by a captain in absolutely inspired and sensational form in Barbara Taylor. And you could see how much it all meant to the team and kind of how well they gelled and the support. I mean, commiserations to South Africa, who put in a valiant effort. However, it was going to take a monumental effort to rip the title from South Africa's hands. But England ladies, take a bow. You played some incredible pool during that event.
Yeah, I want to mention as well the Irish ladies who beat England on their way to making it through to the semi-finals, and they came up short against South Africa, but they really made a massive fight of it. And when they beat England in that deciding frame, you thought, hang on a minute, could there be something really special brewing here? Maybe a little bit of a surprise to see them play as well as they did, but it just shows that they're tracking in the right direction as well.
Was it a surprise, or do we come to expect this when a nation is watching and a nation is there to support? It kind of gives people that extra 5-10% that they need to do, which on paper is seemingly impossible. And if you can't take inspiration from what that Irish team did during that week, you could see how close they were together. My favourite commentary all week was in an Ireland game, as you know, Simon. I must have messaged you like 20 times just to say that it was the nicest biased commentary I've ever listened to in my life, and you can kind of see what it meant to every single person in Ireland. So it was great to see, and that team has got enough youth in there to become real contenders and very dangerous in the coming years.
Yeah, no doubt. The Randall twins are only 22 years old, and the commentator on about Mary Duffy, she wasn't part of the Irish team. She just missed out on getting in the Irish team, but she was there. And when she was asked to commentate, she was sort of told, "Try to be impartial." And as soon as she got up to me, I was like, "No, get a full blown. Let's get right behind your team here. No, make no apologies that you're behind this Irish team." And she was absolutely fantastic to have her on commentary for one of the Irish matches. We got her on commentary a few times actually because she was very good.
Everybody needs a Mary Duffy. Everybody needs a Mary Duffy in their life, right? And I'm telling you, even when one of the ladies absolutely butchered a shot, she turned it into a positive. And there is nothing more that, to give you great confidence when you've got a cheerleader like that in commentary. I would love for Mary to commentate on any match that I ever play.
Yeah, well, the one thing you didn't get to see is she was sat on the edge of her seat and she was really riding every single moment as well. I think it was the South Africa match in the group stages that went down to a deciding frame, and it really did have everything, that match. It was one of the best matches of the tournament, and obviously having Mary there on comms as well was fantastic because she was riding and living it out, which I think really went across to the viewers, which was a lot of fun to sort of be a part of as well.
And speaking of that South Africa match, you actually saw somebody in Amy Claire King, who's a seasoned and experienced player. Her nerves were gone towards the end of that match, which I certainly never expected to see. And it kind of just shows the pressure cooker that people are put in when they play in these team events. Nothing replicates playing in a team event because it's not yourself you're letting down. It's your team you're letting down, and you're letting your nation down. So there's an extra bit of pressure on there, and that was one of the highlights of the week for me. That particular match, it was just such great fun to watch, and I was on the edge of my seat, and I wasn't even playing.
Yeah, Amy Claire King, of course, former Masters champion. We'll talk about the Masters that happened this year. Well, she was the defending champion. We'll talk about that in a couple of moments' time. But it is England that managed to get their title back. They managed to beat South Africa. So England win the ladies' event, which is good for you because you picked them. We'll do all our picks because we had picks across all the sections. We'll update the scores at the end of the mini as we go through all these scores here. But one for you there, that's for sure. Now let's move on to the men's team event. And England won again, which again was to your... excuse me, because you picked them. But up against Northern Ireland, which we kind of always felt it would be. On paper, they were the two strongest sides. They were the two strongest sides through the group stages, and they ended up in the final. And England showed their class sort of halfway through the match. They suddenly just hit a gear and took every chance they sort of had. And it really was a very impressive performance. And an England team that showed a lot of animation and a lot of noise, probably. And they were all saying for the first time in years, they've sort of had that kind of... They've had that passion and noise as teams cheering on their teammates, and I think that tells a lot about what Northern Ireland brought to the party.
Well, we're going to move on to the shootout at some point, but kind of if the England manager and the England captain were looking for a team talk, Callum Singleton gave it to them. Really, if we're being honest, in one of it's my favourite picture from the whole tournament is Callum Singleton looking at his watch, and the England team with their retour when they've lifted the trophy with them all looking at their watch kind of showed what it meant. And it felt really fitting that Shane Thompson was the person to pot the winning ball for England. He had a moment to forget earlier in the week. Listen, England are class. They're absolutely class, and it's kind of it would have taken a monumental effort to have beaten them in that format, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I did think the Northern Irish team were going to do it, though. They really, they got off to a strong start. But you are right, that what happened in the shootout, and we're going to show you that a little bit later on in the show, definitely motivated England to, they knew what they were up against at that point. They feel like they lost it in the shootout, and they wanted to sort of prove that by playing well in this final, and they absolutely did play well. And you mentioned Shane Thompson. He had statistically had the best tournament on the individual side of it as well. Dropped 3 frames through the whole tournament. He really showed his class as the ultimate pool number 1. He didn't take down the individual honours. That went to Callum Singleton and Sean Sharkey from Ireland because they played more frames, and the individual award goes to the player that wins the most frames rather than the highest percentage. But England, with a big squad, they're always going to share their frames out, so you're never going to get somebody from England, or very rarely get someone from England take down that title. But Shane was very impressive, and you felt like that England team was being led by Shane and Carl Sutton. The two of them just seemed to sort of really kind of. Carl looked a different animal in an international team event than he does when we comes to a pro series. Even though he's taken one down, he almost pumps his chest up and he is carrying his nation.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of international pool. Heroes are born. From, and you've spoken about Sean Sharkey. He played superb. All throughout the whole event, he really did. He's a guy I like watching as well. He's always been renowned. He's got good bottle, but to do it on that stage in front of your home crowd is very difficult. And Callum Singleton, every single time I watch him, he just keeps impressing me more and more and more. He is definitely a future world champion for me. He is an absolute class act, sensational, and he's also got a great personality, which we need in the game of pool.
Yeah, highlighted in the shootout, which we're going to show you in a little bit. But yeah, Callum's like the worst kept secret in pool because he's not been an ultimate pool professional. He's kind of maybe not talked about as much as other players, but he's won the Masters previously at the WEPF World Championships. He's got a massive reputation within the game, and when he turns pro next year, he is going to be a very big danger. Of that, I have no doubt whatsoever. And that Northern Irish team, we should have a final word on them. They look like they've got some hunger in that team. There's a management there as well that have been putting that team together for a while. I've got a feeling they're going to be back in Morocco with very similar squad, and I think they could well be very dangerous going into Morocco next year.
It's very difficult to back against him when you think that England team has been together for pretty much for a very long time, the core group, whereas for that Northern Ireland team they had. They introduced Ronan McCarthy into the team. They haven't had as long together as a team, but they are going to be very dangerous in Morocco. There's going to be extra experience gained from this tournament that they'll take to the next. And let's be honest, they're really exciting to watch as well. They're such a great team to watch as well. It's going to be interesting. I don't think England are going to have it their own. Certainly not going to have it their own way. In Morocco, I was impressed by several teams throughout that maybe just lacked that little bit of experience or that little bit of luck at the right times. Malta impressed me immensely. France had flashes of brilliance, and arguably South Africa were the most entertaining team to watch from facial expressions and body language that I've ever seen.
Yeah, they were fantastic, especially in that shootout. Australia also very good strength and depth. They looked good, coming up just short against England in the semi-finals, but they're definitely always going to be a big danger. They've got some strength in Australia now, which is great to see. Obviously, they've already taken down the title a couple of times as well. So I definitely think that men's section is building up, really well. England may have dominated it, but I don't think it's always going to be about England going forward, which is kind of what we want to see. We want to see this, obviously we're both English. We love seeing England win, but we do want to see that section really thrive and see more nations potentially take down the title. But as I say, you got that one right again because two out of two, you picked the favourites. Congratulations, 2 points for you. Let's move on then. Let's go into the singles event, the two main singles, the men's and ladies world champions. And let's start with the ladies and Barbara Taylor. She managed to get the title once again. She won it back in 2018. She wins it again this year, taking down Sarah Coxon in the final, who was a surprise name in the final. But you have to say, the way that Barbara went through the tournament, she was definitely in the tough half of the draw. The way she played against Emma Cunningham in the semi-final was incredibly impressive. So no surprise to see her take down this title.
I was lucky enough to speak to Barbara throughout the tournament via text, and I honestly, I'm not surprised she won in the way she did. She was bang up for it, like you wouldn't believe. How can she kind of, I guess from her perspective, feels that she's kind of missed the party a little bit by not being involved in the ultimate pool women's series, which is understandable because Barbara is one of the best women players the world has ever seen. It felt like she had a little bit of a point to prove over the course of the tournament, and she really did prove her point. Her performance against Emma Cunningham was absolutely sensational. Emma missed a couple of chances, but believe me, Barbara punished. Well, you watched it yourself. Barbara punished seemingly every mistake in the final. She probably had the best possible start in the sense of you're 5-0 up, but then the pressure started to build, and I thought Barbara reacted really well. She didn't have the vast majority of the crowd on her side, but on a personal perspective, I know Barbara. I've got a lot of time for her. There's so many people that would be absolutely delighted in the game to seeing her lifting that trophy again. One World Championship certainly wasn't enough for her legacy. So to see her pick a second one up, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and one of the other big things for her is the fact that she went in there and put a lot of pressure on herself to hold the European, the national, and the world title all at the same time, something that no one else has ever done before. She also threw the Masters into that mix as well, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But unbelievable performance from Barbara to take down this title. As I mentioned, her half of the draw was a minefield. When you looked at the draw after, say, when you got to the last 16 stage, you realised it was just stacked all the way, whereas the top half of the draw completely opened up. We had Amy Beecham not arrive. She was the top seed in that section of the draw. Then you also had Sharon James had to go home because of some health issues with her daughter, and we wish her well. It just meant the top half of the draw opened up and allowed somebody to say, yeah, this could be my time. And I am so thrilled for Sarah Coxon that she's come through and made that final. I'm also really thrilled for her that at 5-0 down, she could have crumbled and said, you know what, great tournament. It wasn't to be in the final, but she put up a big fight there.
She was terrific value, and the hardest thing was when Barbara went 5-0 up, nobody wanted her to run away with it, and they didn't, because there'd been so much hard work put in by Sarah. She'd fought so fantastically well throughout the tournament. When she did make a game of it, you could really feel it in the crowd, and everybody wanted to see the show. She could be really proud of her efforts, and the one thing she can do is she can take this into next year's World Championships. That experience that she's banked is going to be absolutely critical. She will never start as slow again in a final, I guarantee it.
Yeah, it's hard to put into words quite how nervous she was. When we interviewed her, that's as nervous I've seen anyone with an interview. But what I love is the story, behind how she's got to that stage. 20 years ago, or just over 20 years ago, she had a stroke and was left blind in both eyes. So to recover from that to the point where she can play in a World Championship final, I just think is an inspiration to anybody that is going through health issues, really.
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, it was a fairy tale. It was a fairy tale for her to get to the final, because let's be brutally honest, she was probably not in people's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th down the list. So for her to do that, she can be so proud of herself. And it would have been a tough defeat to take, but hopefully that she's reflected on that and seen the journey that she's gone on and realizes that she should be so immensely proud of herself. What a wonderful competitor. And she potted some great balls at some high pressure times as well. So she can look back on the video and be really proud of her efforts if she ignores the first 5 frames where she had opportunities and it just really did feel like the pressure had gotten to her.
Yeah, and I'm sure, obviously it's going to hurt, but I'm sure she looks back and she is very proud of what she achieved this week. And hopefully going into, future tournaments, she can take that confidence in, and, who knows what she could achieve going forward. It really could elevate her into a whole other level of the game, really. We will find out over the coming months and years. Let's turn our attention to the men's section then. And, well, actually, it's just mentioned we should round out the ladies section just to say, because I got that one right, I got the pick right. And you, once again, you went for arguably the favourite and you got it wrong. You are very good at picking those favourites, but you got it wrong this time. And I got it right. So 2-1 so far on our picks so far in the competition. Let's go on to the men's one, where neither of us got it right, because Ronan McCarthy did something very special indeed. He has been a legend of the game for a long, long time. He has won titles, big titles over the last, 30 odd years. He has been an absolute legend of the game, and finally, absolutely finally, he can put a world title on his mantelpiece. He is now a world champion. There was something in the air. Scott, wasn't there? I mean, you could just sense it as the week was building. For Ronan to take down this title, it was very special. There were so many people so happy to see him win it, and I was one of those. It really was a great moment.
Well, listen, I'm going to make absolutely no bones about this. Ronan's form over the season has been nowhere near what we come to expect from Ronan. Because make no mistake about this, Ronan is a true legend of the game. Absolutely, no doubt. Go down in the annals of history. People used to talk about, even before things like the internet, I used to hear stories about Ronan when I was younger, about his prowess in money matches, his bottle, his nerve, his ability just to win seemingly when he looked beat. And this season, he's looked at early doors, and he'll tell you this himself. He struggled with confidence. He's looked a shell of the player he was. And myself, lots of people, and myself included, maybe thought that Father Time was finally catching up on this great player and he was ready to head into the sunset. How wrong were we? I don't think there was a dry eye in the house when we watched Ronan lift that world title. That man is an absolute legend, and he deserved this on his ledger. And believe me, it's funny. The pool gods have got a funny way of making things work out for you. Yeah. Ronan, absolute tactical master. But look at small things, Simon. Like the breaks weren't as big in this tournament as they have been historically. Ronan is notoriously not the best breaker on the planet. But there were times when he came up with clearances from the gods, and he's made the right ball. Even his safety game throughout the tournament was absolutely incredible. He tied poor Dom Cooney up in knots at stages during their semi-final. But let's just say this: that legend deserved this world championship, and honestly, I am so thrilled for him, and he deserves it so much. And I think he is probably the most popular winner of the WEPF World Championships of all time.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. The emotion you can see from look at all those teammates, and they're not just happy for them; they're buzzing for him as much as they almost would be if they won it themselves. It's incredible to see. It really was. There was tears. Declan Brennan, one of his good mates, he was crying. He was. There was definitely huge emotion out there. And Ronan was able to put all out the back of his mind during that final. Chris Day, great run to the final. It has to be said, Chris Day was the dominant player in the tournament right up to that final. The way he was winning his matches, but he obviously got off to a very poor start against Ronan in the final. But he came back pretty strong. And at one point, you were thinking if he wins the next frame, he was going to get back within one. You were thinking probably favourite to win it from that point. But Ronan, under huge pressure, has just found a finish, and they're able to get that momentum back. And he was absolutely fantastic. Honestly, I was buzzing for him. I really was. But you are right about you almost felt like the stars were aligning for him. It's the last ever World Rules World Championships. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Big news coming from the WEPF. Yes, the breaks, for whatever reason, the breaks weren't opening up for people as much this week as they have been. So you're getting a lot more messy frames. Therefore, his weakness of the break was nowhere near as big a weakness as it is when we're playing international rules in perfect conditions on the Pro Series. It just wasn't. It wasn't as big a factor, and all that sort of thing. He just allowed him to be clever. He is the cleverest player in the game. He's right. Maybe put up there with Mick Hill, maybe, but he's so clever the way he deals with situations. And that you mentioned Dom Cooney, the way one of the frames he played against Dom Cooney in the semi-finals, it just had me. It was an incredible display from both of them. It has to be said of tactical play. It was just incredible. One of my favourite frames of the tournament was a tactical frame between those two. It was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, Ronan McCarthy walks away with his first world title, and it completes what is an unbelievable career. It really does.
Well, the crazy thing for me, Simon, and we're lucky enough to speak to Ronan fairly regularly, and you wouldn't hear many people to have a bad word to say about Ronan in the game, because he is universally loved by and respected by his peers. But I saw a side of Ronan over that week that you don't see very often, which is the fist pumps. he knew the big moments so well. And you mentioned that frame where Chris Day could have came within one, and then the pressure suddenly shifts. He came up with the goods at the right time, and that has been a signature of Ronan McCarthy's career, albeit in a money game, or albeit in a different type of tournament. But at this World Championships, it just never felt right. And, you know, I'm going to plug my podcast here. If you ever want to listen to a great podcast about pool, listen to the Ultimate 8 Ball podcast we did with Ronan McCarthy. It almost felt like he needed that. He literally needed that just to solidify everything that he's done previously in the game. And I've never been more. I was buzzing so much just to watch him win that World Championships. No, I had fist pumps, and listen, that's nothing against Chris Day, because I love Chris Day as well, he's a great guy, but it just felt like this was Ronan's destiny to win the World Championships, and it looked that way when the draw pretty much opened up. The draw pretty much opened up early doors for him. He had to beat some fantastic competitors on the way. But every time he needed to find something, he found it. So congratulations to Ronan and his family. And this is also a credit to him. If you speak to youngsters in the game, Ronan is there as a friendly ear. Ronan is there to help. Ronan is there to support. So he deserves this more than anyone in the game.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Just a crowning moment for him. Caps off a brilliant career. And I guess at his age, you know, he's in his 50s now. You're thinking, you know, is that ever going to come? Well, it has, and it rounds everything off. And, you know, there's at least one pundit, you know, maybe on this podcast that thinks it was maybe over. You said that earlier on this year. You thought maybe his father time catching up with him. Well, I guess not.
Simon, it wasn't just me who thought it. You know, there's a lot of people out there, because, you know, we all grew up watching Ronan play absolutely unbelievable pool, and he was missing shots that he wouldn't miss with his eyes closed in his prime. And, you know, let's talk about the chain of events here, because we had Ronan on on Ultimate Pool Extra, and he also spoke at points where maybe his confidence had gone a little bit. The big key moment was in Daventry. He learned how to win again. There's absolutely no doubt about it. That was huge for him. That was absolutely huge for him. He remembered what it was like to win again. And if you listen to the last episode of Ultimate Pool Extra, I did say he would be very dangerous at this World Championships, because he had learned what it was like to win again. And it kind of just goes to show that one win has clearly done something. Well, Ronan even said in practice the week before the World Championship, he wasn't playing well. But he's turned up at the event and everything's gone right for him. And fair play, he deserves it. Absolutely deserves it. This is one time where I'm happy that all the people that thought that Ronan was done were proved wrong, because, listen, that man is a great champion, and absolute credit to the sport, and he deserved that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking a little further through the draw and mentioning who we picked as well. Dom Cooney and Carl Sutton both made the semi-finals. Great runs for them. They've both been to the final before, so they're knocking on the door once again. You picked Shane Thompson. He lost out, I think it was the last 16, to Jean-Michel Josse. Deciding frame drew a huge crowd outside of the stream. It finished very, very late on the outside tables, and it was a huge finish from Jean-Michel to get that victory. I had Declan Brennan. He lost out. He had a tough draw, actually. He qualified through nicely, then gets Stevie Dempsey first round and loses out to him 8-6. You know, it's a tough draw, that one. Sort of feel like that's the way it's going for Declan Brennan at the moment, but great player, and he will come back stronger. So neither of us get a point on this occasion. But yeah, great victory for Ronan McCarthy. I think we're both absolutely thrilled, as a lot of people are. In the middle of all that, I did mention the fact that this will be the last World Rules World Championships. Because of the big news this week that the WEPF, or last week, WEPF, have changed the rule sets going forward for 2023 and beyond. All international events will be played to international 8-ball rules. Then European Pool followed the same directive, so they're all changing as well, which means the European Championships in Malta is going to be international 8-ball rules. Morocco follows in for the World Championships and beyond. And we also now know that a lot of the organisations that had a say in the AGM to make that decision have also followed suit. You know, the likes of the Irish Pool Association have already made that decision. We're still waiting to hear about other organisations, but monumental news in the world of pool, really, Scott, you have to say.
It's the right decision. and I will say this, and I'll argue with anybody till they're blue in the face, that this is it's a brave decision by the WEPF. Make no mistake about it, but it's the right decision. And it's the right decision for this reason. Look at the volume of entries you had in the under-20s category, and that tells you everything you need to know from where I'm sitting. The game is at an interesting crossroads for me. If we want to promote youth in the game and we want to get more people involved in playing, there are times when the rule set has held us back, particularly from a junior perspective. We live in a totally different era, a totally different world where people, when a world rules frame goes tactical, it's not really appealing to youngsters in the game, if we're being honest, because for some people, if you're fans of, say, the Ultimate Pool product, you're used to a very different brand of pool. And I found myself, this, Simon, and you and I joke about stuff a lot. That I'm a bit of a historian of the game, so I know, I've sat and watched every bit of pool that you could probably ever want to watch. And there were times when I watched a few of the frames over the course of the World Championships where I found it a tough watch. It's a brave move. It's the right move. What I'm really hoping to see is an influx of youngsters. And, next year to see a World Championships where we have got the most stacked field in the history of the World Championships.
Yeah, I hope we do see that. I hope that happens. I agree with everything you just said. I think was a brave decision, but I agree with you. I think it's the right decision. I've seen it firsthand at the World Championships this year. There are people that just love playing world rules. That's absolutely fine, and nobody's saying you can't play world rules. We're just saying, at the top level, at the World Championships, in international events, that's going to get the TV exposure. It's now in line with Ultimate Pool. Ultimate Pool didn't have a say in this decision, by the way. A lot of people will be saying it's Ultimate Pool. It's not. The WPF made this decision all on their own. It's got nothing to do with Ultimate. But it just means that for the newcomers into the game, for the juniors, it's a much more fun game to play initially. And if you enjoy playing world rules, still go and play them. There's always going to be leagues, there'll be competitions, and that's absolutely fine. Nobody's stopping you. But for the future of the game, it's really important that the rules changed for me, and it's great to see. So I'm really pleased. But I'm also really pleased to see the European Pool Association, the EEPF, made the same decision as well. And it's great to see some of the organisations following suit, because you feel they need to. If they're going to compete at World Championships, they need to make the decision to do it straight away, you feel. And I know that there's going to be some votes happening across a lot of organisations over the coming months. So it would be fascinating to see how many do change to the new rule set.
It's evolution, Simon. It is kind of the best and politest way to put it. We've seen the game evolve and find its identity over the course of if you think about pool versus snooker. Pool's still a very young suitor to a snooker. Snooker's like hundreds of years old. Professional pool, started being played in the 1980s, which is no time at all. And let's be brutally honest, in the 80s, it was absolutely brutal to watch on television. I've looked at lots of old footage where they'd spend 20 minutes tapping around a ball, and it's just not attractive for people to watch on TV. We saw the evolution. When world rules came about, everybody thought that was the greatest thing kind of that anybody's ever seen. But since obviously international rules, and they're not just played at Ultimate Pool, and people have kind of got to remember that. I mean, there are even local tournaments around my way that have started to pop up that are international rules. International rules are played all around the world, and that's kind of the big thing, and it makes it easier for people to pick up from one cue sport to the next. I always remember on a trip to America, I've had a game of pool with a local in a bar, and I asked, "Is it two shots carry?" And he looked at me as if I was from a different planet. So hopefully that sort of thing will be lost in translation. But the WEPF have been very brave, and the members of the WEPF who voted in favour for international rules can see actually, this is a potential future to the game, and they want to protect the game for future generations. And fair play. I don't want to get too caught up in a rules chat, Simon, but bold, brave move by the WPF, and I am so excited to see what that looks like at future WEPF events. I'll certainly be tuning in.
Yeah, I will too. Hopefully, I'll be there as well. But well, you say let's not get caught up in a rules chat. Great decision from the WPF. Let's move on, and let's talk about the one event that was televised rather than just on the Ultimate Pool at the World Championships, the shootout. What a day we had there. Just being a part of it, it felt huge. It felt like one of the best shows we had. It was an incredible spectacle for the pool, especially for a lot of people at the World Championships that maybe didn't know too much about shootout pool before, especially when you're coming from other countries. They may not have seen the coverage we've had over the last few years, because a couple of years prior to lockdown, the shootouts were really grabbing the attention, certainly in the UK. It felt like a great spectacle. I was buzzing to be a part of it just from a commentary perspective. What was it like to sit back and watch, Scott?
It was unbelievable. The drama, the excitement throughout the day. There was so much fun, so many talking points. Arguably, it's the best day of pool I've ever watched on television in my life from a spectacle perspective. Now, this is something that's really interesting. So I'm going to bring up my pool team because I know you love me talking about my pool team, Simon. We have practice on a Monday night. I never go to practice, but I decided I would turn up for practice on Monday to hopefully get a frame of pool. What absolutely astonished me is you had football at one end of the pub with nobody watching, and at the other end of the pub you had the pool on, and you literally had 30 people in that pub cheering and shouting at a pool match on television, which I never ever thought I would see in my life. I had goosebumps. So if that's, I mean, your commentary was average, probably. Good job we had the sound down there. I'm only kidding, Simon. It was a great day. It was a great day for pool. It was just such a stunning spectacle. And please, let's do that. Let's do more of those because it was absolutely brilliant. Everybody was invested in it. There was just so many thrilling finishes. There was just so many, 6 red shootouts in a team, but how horrible, how brutal, what a brutal way to lose, what a brilliant way to win. Just everything about the day just felt very special.
Yeah, it really did. We could do a whole show just on the shootout to show you all the different moments, the excitement. Sean Sharkey was unbelievable. The South African team were just the moments we had throughout the day. We could fill a show. We haven't got time, so we can only really show you one moment. You saw there on the photo, Northern Ireland did get the win. They beat England in the semi-final, and then they got over Malta in the final. Let's show you how they got over England. Sit back and enjoy this, Scott.
This may well be a form of vengeance for Declan Brennan. He was beaten in a Scotch frame 6 red shootout by Carl Sutton earlier on in the year for the Ultimate Pool Pairs Cup title. He now gets a chance to get his vengeance.
Really soft break this needs to be. Really good, really good. Great break. That's just, well, yeah. We can't dramatise this, folks. This will be about 25 seconds at most.
Just don't miss.
If that, even if they miss, they're fine. Just make sure you don't foul, really. I mean, it's going to be sub 20.
Callum Singleton checks the watch. Northern Ireland are in the final. And just look what it means. Just listen to what it means.
Callum, you cheeky boy. You naughty man.
How good is that, Scott? That's absolutely amazing. It really is. Callum Singleton had the time and the cheek to check his watch during a 6 red shootout to knock England out. Just brilliant moment.
I was laughing watching it again. Every time I watch that, it puts a smile on my face, and I know it's put a smile on thousands and thousands and thousands of pool fans across the globe. It was just absolutely brilliant. We need more of that in the game. Well done, Callum Singleton. You gave everybody a good, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it was an unbelievable time anyway, but he could have probably knocked another few seconds off if he'd have really wanted to. But it was an absolutely brilliant. For me, it's my favourite picture from the World Championship, from the whole of the World Championships. I know that sounds crazy. It's an iconic moment, and it's one that he will look back on in years to come and smile. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it just shows you how calm he is. I mean, he's got the calm and the poise to actually understand he's got time to have a bit of fun out there and enjoy that moment rather than We've seen plenty of people do the 6-road shootout and panic, and all of a sudden they're rushing, they miss balls. But no, it was my favourite moment of the whole World Championships. Callum Singleton take a bow, that really was very, very special. But you mentioned it when we were talking about, because so the shootout happened in the middle of the event, and you mentioned it.
Yeah.
England were hurt by that. Now, England were hurt for a couple of reasons. One, because they messed up. Let's be honest. Ronan McCarthy made a buzzer beater clearance on the back of Shane making a mistake. He should just potted 4 easy balls, and they're in the fight. They make it through. So England were hurt, and that was the thing they grabbed hold of, and they were very fully aware when in that final they were all checking their watches when they were doing all the celebrations and they were doing the photos afterwards. It was a moment they're fully aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest. Every devil needs an angel, and with all due respect to the other nations that had competed previously in the last several years in terms of the World Championships, Australia, for example, who were the last team to upset the apple cart, they finally had a team that was ready to stand toe to toe with them and challenge them. And that's probably why it meant the most to England when they won the team event, because Northern Ireland had wound them up, had annoyed them, had upset them, and they had to respond. And that's what we saw. But listen, you need that. You absolutely need that. Who wants to just watch? I want needle when I'm watching a pool match as a spectator. I want there to be an edge when I'm watching as a spectator. And both nations provided that drama for us, and it was brilliant to see. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was. And I love the needle. It was needle, but not. It wasn't too far. It was the team took it in the right way. England took it the right way. They actually enjoyed that moment. Once they were able to get over the disappointment of losing, they got the humour in it. I spoke to a few of their players about it, and they had a lot of time for what Callum did, even though it hurt them. We just want to see the character come out, and we're certainly seeing Callum's character come out. Can't wait to see him on the Pro Series next year. I really can't. I think he's going to be a massive danger, because if you're that calm in that situation, then watch out. He could definitely be a danger and win something next year. So that rounds out the shootout. I get the point because you had England once again. You picked the favourites again. I went for Northern Ireland and I got the victory there. So good for me. So that's 2-2 on our picks. Let's move on to the Masters then, played at international 8-ball rules for the first time, which was a big thing, and obviously a big part of the fact that WEPF then made the decision we've talked about. But for the first time ever, Barbara Taylor playing in an international 8-ball rules event. She took down the title against Harriet Haynes in the final. Brilliant performance from Barbara. She was kind of gone in that final. We can't talk about that final without talking about one of the big disappointments of the competition, really. It was very poor. I was heavily involved in a lot of trying to figure out scheduling and get shows on and stuff. And, it was a bad mistake from a few people involved. No, I'm not going to point the fingers at any one person, but at the end of the day, it just shouldn't have happened. If you are not sure what I'm talking about, there was a second opening ceremony for the other sections, the wheelchairs, the under-20s, the over-60s, that happened in the middle of their final that completely over-dominated the final to the point where they had to stop. It was very disrespectful to the ladies out there playing.
Yeah, it was. If we talk about all the highs of the event, which on the whole was a fantastic event, we've got to be honest here. That was brutal. I know this. I have never played to the level of a Harriet or a Barbara. But what I will say is, if somebody moves in my eye line when I'm playing a shot, I'll tell them, because I don't want to be distracted when I'm playing. Harriet is down mid-stroke, and there has just been a huge lot of noise going off, and it's continued and it's carried on. It really deeply affected Harriet. She wasn't the same player after the break. Let's be brutally honest about it. It shouldn't have happened. And for one thing, I wouldn't want to see that happen again. And I think Harriet made a very valid point. Would it have happened if it was a men's final? And I would say that wouldn't happen. So, there have to be lessons learned from something like that. And the WEPF do need to look to make sure that nothing like that happens again, because it was completely unfair. And and this is the bad part about it. it took the shine off of what Barbara did. Now, Barbara hadn't played an international rules tournament ever. Now, I know this myself. I was the first person to give Barbara Taylor a game of international rules, which was several weeks ago. What she did was nothing short of miraculous. Harriet was the heavy favourite, as we spoke about before. Nobody expected Barbara to do anything in that tournament, but unfortunately, people are going to look back at that tournament, and if they watched it, the first thing they're going to mention is, well, Harriet got put off. And rightly so. You could see it deeply impacted Harriet. It also had an effect on Barbara as well, and you could see Barbara being quite vocal to her supporters about it. That sort of thing can't happen. It can't happen again, because it did take the sheen off what was a fantastic final that at one point it looked like Harriet was going to run away with.
Yeah, so to put it into context, Harriet was 3-1 up when the opening ceremony happened. She makes a mistake and Barbara gets it back to 3-2, and then it really kicks off. And, Barbara, to her credit, took her time. They actually had a bit of a pause in the frame. Then she makes the clearance to make it 3-3, and then they just stopped the final. And when they came back after the opening ceremony, Barbara won the first frame. Harriet had a good chance, an unbelievable effort actually, to get through to a really simple last ball and the 8-ball waiting, and she made a mistake, missed a simple ball, and from that moment on, she was completely gone. And whilst you mentioned the fact that it was very distracting for them, I can't describe how loud it was. It was incredible. It almost couldn't hear yourself think. But it wasn't really the distraction, I think, that affected certainly Harriet and Barbara to an extent, but Harriet really, it was more the fact that the sort of disrespect, because it was a ladies' final, and she's absolutely right. There's no doubt it wouldn't have happened in the men's final. Now, I know that the decisions that were made, they weren't made in a sexist way, but the upshot is, well, if that was a men's final, they wouldn't have been made. They would have realised the error, and it wouldn't have happened. So absolutely right, and that's definitely something the sport needs to look at and do a better job of going forward.
And that's why it's good that we now live in this era where, this is probably the first show where in the history of the WEPF where there's been a roundup show afterwards that's pointing these things out. And also Harriet, I thought that she was very measured in a post-match interview, because I'm going to tell you this now, I would have even given you a post-match interview. I would have left that arena very, very quickly. I wouldn't have even talked to you. So fair play for Harriet for standing there and giving you that interview after. But again, forget the whole part of it. It took the shine off of what Barbara did, which was something remarkable.
Yeah, it really did. That was the toughest post-match presentation I've ever had to do for a variety of reasons. I'll be honest, I was heartbroken. I was gone. So I dread to think how the two players felt. You are right. It's kind of taken the shine off what Barbara did, but let's put that shine back on. That completes the set for Barbara. She's won everything there is to win in the game now. I guess the next challenge for her is to come onto the Ultimate Pool Women's Series and see if she can start taking out titles there. But in terms of WEPF, national pool, European pool, world pool, she has won everything there is to win. She'd been knocked on the door in that Masters. She'd never won it before, and now she's completed the set. It is a brilliant achievement, and the fact that she won the world title as well this week, and she won the team event, it is one of the best weeks of her career. And it deserves all the shine it possibly could, because it was a phenomenal week of pool. Fair play to Barbara. She is the champion. Can't wait to see her. Actually, she is signed up for the Women's Series this coming year. She should be a huge threat going forward. She's really, especially if you think Emma's back to form, you've got Amy in there, you've got Harriet in there, and you've got a whole host of other players. Next year on the Women's Series is going to be the most competitive pool we have ever seen before. I am sure of that. Let's move on. Neither of us had Barbara for the Masters, so no results there. You did have Harriet, so got close in the final, but no points for you, I'm afraid. Let's move on to the men's Masters, and Ronan McCarthy once again. I mean, incredible, really. Takes down the title. Yannick Beaufils, who was riding some serious form, obviously winning the big event in Paris the week before, in France the week before rather. Comes in with huge momentum, huge amount of form, makes the final, and he's the dominant player in the final. Let's not, mince around there. He was the best player in that final up until the final 5 frames, when Ronan just suddenly found something from somewhere and was incredible.
One of the biggest thrills all week was me watching Yannick Buffis, because when I cannot emphasize enough how talented he is, and I for one I really hope he joins Ultimate Pool, because I just think he's a very special talent, and he always has been. And winning the Black Ball World Championships a week or so prior kind of gives you an indication in the level of class that he has as a player. So he was coming in absolutely dangerous form. Look at what he did to Declan Brennan. He beat Declan comprehensively. But you're right. And again, Ronan picked his moments, and Ronan, I didn't see Ronan winning that final, if I'm being brutally honest, because I thought Yannick had been playing so well. I couldn't see it, and especially kind of the start, that kind of mid-match when Yannick came into the match, I kind of thought Yannick might go up a gear here and play even better. But Ronan, again, just found something from somewhere and played great pool to win it.
He did, and it was the level of animation. We've never seen that, or I certainly haven't, from Ronan before. He's normally, you couldn't tell whether he's winning, losing. He gives you nothing. He was reacting not just to good shots. He was showing frustration to bad shots. But when he was playing the good shots, the crowd were getting involved, and you've got to believe they really helped him, spurred him on. He got one little bit of help from Yannick. At one point, Yannick missed a ball he shouldn't have done, that you felt if he makes it, he goes on the verge of winning, and maybe then it's a step too far because you feel he's going to get another chance. He misses it, and Ronan grabbed it and ran away. So just an unbelievable week for Ronan. He took down the Masters and the World Championships. Also, the team won the shootout. The Masters and the World Championships, it's only been done before once, and that was by Mick Hill. Just an incredible achievement, and we've already talked about Ronan and what it means to him and his career. It really is incredible, and a lot of people, including myself, were so thrilled to see him take down the Masters as well as the world title. Fair play
the big
to
thing it
Ronan.
does, though, Simon, is it gives hope to people that are in their 50s like yourself that you can still win at that age.
Yeah, I mean, I retired in my 30s, so it's not.
20 years ago.
I'll wait a decade and then maybe I'll make a comeback. We'll see what can happen. But no, but you are right though. There's a lot of people that can look at that and think, well, the level that Ronan's had a disappointing year. He's lost a lot of first round matches this year on the Ultimate Pool Pro Series. He had a good run at Christmas, but since then, until Daventry, until the mini series, his form has dipped, his confidence has dipped. So it just shows you, for any player that is struggling, you just need a win here or there just to find some confidence and put the hard work in. Let's not forget that Ronan McCarthy has put a lot of hard work in to achieve what he achieved this week. It's not as though he's just suddenly turned up and played well. He has put a lot of hard work in practice. I know that he's been practicing a lot in preparation, so he deserves everything that has come his way this week. And he's got a lot of silverware that he's been taking back to Northern Ireland with him, because it was just an unbelievable week for the Northern Irishman. That rounds out all the tournaments that we had picks on, Scott. So by my calculations, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's 2-2 on results this week.
I'm shocked I didn't get a point for Harriet, because I nearly wrote to Joe Fanto myself to say, do you not realise what this has meant? I'm on my way to the ocean.
Yeah, well, let's update the scores then. So 2-2, it means the gap was 4. It's still 4, and it's looking dangerous for you there, Scott. That ocean in Blackpool is getting closer and closer for you, mate.
Plenty of weeks to go, plenty of picks, plenty of opportunity. I'll panic if I'm 4 behind with 3 picks to go.
Okay. All right. Well, we have got plenty to come, actually. There's still a lot going on with Ultimate Pool over the next couple of months before we get to the Pro Series. So you have got time, but it is starting to run out for you. We will have some picks later on in the show. We'll round out the show with picks for what's coming up this week. But we do want to run through all the other results in the competition. Let's start with the under-25s team event. This was Ireland's biggest hope of winning one of the big tournaments. And they certainly played like it. Their team have been dominant in international events. The Ireland under-25 team, they beat Malta in the final. There's Mark Scally, the manager. He was he was a huge part of the show in terms of doing a lot of commentary. He is the IPA chairman, but this was his big thing, managing this Ireland team, and they delivered. They were very entertaining to watch, as were the Malta team that included Dejan Grech, and it was a great final and a great end to the tournament for the under-25 section.
Yeah, and thoroughly deserves. But let's, Malta as well, absolutely terrific team. Ireland's got a bright future with that team, and there was a lot of entertaining, ultra-attacking pool being played by that team, which was great to see. Very worthy winners, and a massive well done to Ireland.
Yeah, and that was played as under-25s. Going forward, it's going to go back to under-23s. So a lot of that section are now going to move on to the men's game. So it will be fascinating to see how a lot of those players go when they move up, make the step up to the next level. The one player we do know has already made that step, if you like, is Dejan Grech. He's he's gone very well on the Ultimate Pool Pro Series. He was the leading player in the under-25 section. In the team games, he had a very disappointing tournament on individual tournaments, as in the under-25 Worlds and all the other tournaments he got to play in. He lost first round of pretty much everything he played in. But in the team, he was fantastic. So, well done to Dejan. So, yeah, congratulations to the Irish team as well. And great to see Malta doing so well, because they bring a lot of passion. Under-25 individual event then. It actually ended up being Luke Gilbert, defending champion, taking on Scott Muscat. Went all the way down to a deciding frame, and it was the Maltese that managed to get over the line. Both players had chances in the final. We were actually commentating on another match whilst that was going on, and we were trying to sort of commentate on both. Both players had multiple chances in that final, but it was the man from Malta that got the job done.
Yeah, and I had reports that he'd played sensational kind of all week in that event. Listen, the future's bright, and it's great to see players from outside kind of the traditional areas, so to speak, where you would expect to see a winner from. It's great to see a Maltese player win the under-25s. Commiserations to Luke Gilbert, who he was really desperate to defend that title, and to make it to the final with some of the players in that field was an achievement in itself. But well done to Scott. Cracking result.
Yeah, just to round out the under-25 section, England have been a dominant force in international pool for a long time. The under-25s for England, they disappointed. Let's not mince our words here. Both the A team and B team were very disappointing. They went in with very strong teams, and they just didn't perform. I don't really know why. I can't really put my finger on what went wrong for them.
The A team in particular, I mean, I was following their results online, and I was just sat there thinking, what on? They didn't. I think they lost their first 3 or 4 games, which you would never expect.
They lost their first 3, and then we watched them on the stream in the 4th, and they were just very disappointing. They had chances. They didn't look, even though they're very strong mates, they didn't look like a team. There was no support coming from them. They were all going back to their corner and disappointed with what they've just done, rather than going back and just getting right behind their team, which is what Ireland did. We saw them on the stream a couple of times. They were losing frames, going back, sitting down and getting as behind their teammates as they possibly could. They were such a strong team.
You often hear it in particularly in pool and in other sports as well. The kind of the team that gets on the best will often do sensational, regardless of what the talent is opposite. And you looked at the unity in that Irish team, and you would have thought they'd been world champions 30 times, kind of how they were together and kind of how they cheered each other on. That's the sort of team you'd want to play for. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Both England sides were flat, and they will go away from that, and they'll lick their wounds, and they're going to have to do something, because if they carry on like that, they won't win.
No, absolutely not. So they're going to have to do something in that section. Certainly, be interesting to see what happens. But of course, as a lot of those players are going to be moving up, and it goes back to 23, so we don't know what that makeup of that side is going to look like when we get to Malta for the European Championships. The one section we do know that went really well for England is the under-20s. They pretty much dominated the section. They cruised through the group stages. They topped that. They cruised through the knockout stages, and ended up beating Australia in that final. And it was fairly comfortable in that final as well. Australia did put up a fight, but England never looked like they were going to lose it. A very strong performance from the under-20 section.
Yeah. it was a strong performance. But kind of, I've been trying. What was the difference between the under-20 side and the under-25 side? It's very different. Obviously, I wasn't there and I wasn't part of it. So, on paper, the under-25 side was probably stronger than the under-20 side. So, a massive well done to the under-20s team. Incredible, and long may that continue, Simon. Especially if I'm picking England.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it was a slightly bigger team actually. The under-25s, the size of the teams varied from section to section, and the under-20s had a bigger team, so they're bigger squad. So there was more chance for players to get behind each other. It wasn't you didn't have to go back. When you're playing as the under-25s were playing in one tables, 9 frames. So some squads had 3, some had 4, some had 5. It meant that you were always, if you were playing in a bigger section, you could be disappointed for a few moments and then go and get behind your team. So I just think that might have made a slight difference. But great performance from the under-20s, and also while we talk about the under-20s, Evan Plummer got over the line over Peter Samuelvich in the under-20 World Final as well. So great performance from Evan, and a pretty performance to get to the final from Peter. We didn't get to see too much of the under-20 section. Obviously, only so much you can cover on the stream, but good performances from those two guys.
I mean, to be a world champion, we'll never experience it, Simon. So for those guys, what an absolute thrill. And to be honest with you, that was maybe kind of one area where I would have liked to have seen a bit of coverage, was just to kind of see what the talent's looking like coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess there's just only so much you can cover. Let's move on.
Only so many hours you can commentate.
Only so many hours. We did try, 17 at times, but there we go. Less said. Right, let's move on. Let's go the other end of the spectrum then. Let's go from the under-20s to the over-50s. Brilliant performance from India against England in the final. That was a good section. There were some very, very good teams. Look at the lineup there. There's some great players in that. And they were a proper team. The spirit in this team was absolutely incredible. England and India always looked like they were going to clash at some point, and it could be the final, maybe the semi-final. But India get over the line, and it's a shame we didn't get to see that final because it was very competitive, and that team were great.
Yeah, and always so animated, and I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't get to see that final. But listen, like I say, you look at some of the Facebook statuses, you look at some of the social media commentary from the Indian team and how much it meant to them. The smiling faces, some of the videos that I've seen of the celebrations, absolutely brilliant. Fair play, India. Well done. Yeah, certainly weren't favourites for that. I don't think they were favourites for that final, but put in an unbelievable job.
Yeah, they really did. They always look great as well. Those Indian shirts were absolutely fantastic as well. Really enjoyed the Indian shirts. Really enjoyed the Indian team. I'm really pleased for them to get the title. But it was an Englishman that won the Seniors World Championships. It was Keith Brewer. Got his hands on the senior beat, took down Pat Ward fairly comfortably in the final 8 frames to 2. So congratulations to Keith Brewer. We saw him at the mini series making the final against Ronan. Even at his age, he is still performing.
He's an absolutely brilliant player. Whether he polarizes a lot of people. Some people love him, some people don't. But you cannot take away from the fact that he is an absolutely unbelievable player who just he lives to win tournaments, and it looks like he'll do it forever. Yeah,
that's right. You can't take away from the fact he's just a fantastic pool player. He really is, and now that everything's going towards international rules, we've seen he can do that because we saw him in the mini series. A lot of people, thinking that he's a master at understanding how to play the tactical side of the great game. Well, international rules, where there is still huge tactics, but it is much more open and attacking. He still made the final at the mini series, and here he is. He wins the Seniors World Championship. So congratulations to Keith. Disappointment for Pat Ward in that final, but he did get a big win. He got a big win in the Masters, and one of the most emotional moments I felt of the streaming that we had. He played Paddy Clark in the final of the over 50s Masters, international April rules for their competition as well. And he was very, very emotional when he got over the line and managed to win that, because he said it was about, he'd been knocking on the door, he'd been doing so well, but he was ready to win something major. And here he is. What a moment for Pat. He's such a nice guy as well. So pleased to see him take down this title. Brilliant performance.
I was enthralled from the start of the match. Actually, it was a great match, and to see kind of him in tears at the end of the match kind of showed exactly kind of what it meant to be a winner on that stage. And he was a fully deserving winner, and I thought he showed some flashes of brilliance in the match, and that is one that he'll look back on with great fondness, and deservedly so. Absolutely brilliant. One of my favourite moments of the whole tournament, actually.
Yeah, and mine. It really was. I loved commentating on it, and I absolutely loved going out there and being the one to actually get to interview him and actually enjoy that moment with him, because it meant so much for him. Okay, let's move on. We have got the over 60s team event, and there's so many sections here. Over 60s team event. Northern Ireland were the strongest team in the competition. They dominated it from start to finish. They went unbeaten, took down England in the final. Obviously, a much smaller section, smaller teams, and there you are. Over 60s, Northern Ireland are the champions.
Yeah, no surprise there. Quality outfit, and by all accounts, played some great stuff.
Yeah, okay. Move on to the wheelchair section, and you've got Roy Kimberley from England, who beat David Beaumont from England as well, 5-4 in the final. David Beaumont's actually the strongest player in the group stages. He dominated it, but congratulations to Roy Kimberley to take him down in the final. Great performance, but also for me, fantastic to see this section at the World Championships. I think it's really important.
100%, and that's where pool is a beautiful game. Quite often, other Q sports will move a disability section outside the main event, and it doesn't feel like they're at the Worlds. This was absolutely phenomenal, and absolutely brilliant to see. And again, these are memories that are made forever, and to do it on the biggest stage possible for them is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope to see more and more of that, and hopefully next time we have the World Championships, we can get to see some of the coverage of that as well, because we didn't get to see a huge amount of it, which is a real shame, especially for me. I would like to have gone and watched some of that if I wasn't commentating for so many hours. I certainly would have gone and watched a bit from the outer arena. A few more sections just to get through now. It's the doubles. First time ever that we saw doubles played at the WEPF World Championships. We saw ladies, men's, and seniors. And in the ladies, it was the English pairing, Katie Martin and Sophie Gibbs-Nichols, that got over the line. They beat the Irish pairing of Carrie and Megan Randall in the final. Brilliant performance from the English pair to win it, but also in Ireland, a brilliant performance from the Randall twins. Only 22 years old. It's a big step up for them this week to win that or to make that final and make it a very competitive final as well.
Yeah, I don't think that there would have been any more popular winners at the event all week if the Randall sisters, if they'd have won. You saw them proudly walking around with their Irish tricolours as they were, navigating their way through the tournament, which was absolutely fantastic to see. They had an awful lot of support, but listen, they came up short against a very, very good doubles pairing. But the Randall sisters will look back on the fact they went in off several times at key moments during there, but they're only 22. They'll take that experience, but to lose to a team like that, I believe Sophie Gibbs-Nichols, she's a sports psychologist, and she certainly would have used every single part of her mind to kind of navigate the pressure that was clearly out there. The game went, I think it went 3-2, Simon. I think it went 3-2, and there was a key moment where it could have gone 3-3, and an opportunity was missed. And the English pairing powered on and were deserving winners.
Yeah, you mentioned that sports psychology is something I find fascinating. I'm hoping to spend a bit more time with Sophie and discuss that subject some more, but they did need that because the match was a tough one. There's no getting around it. It was an absolute grueler, and we saw that with actually all sections in the Scotch doubles. Is actually the matches went quite long, and that was a 3-hour final. And they looked like they were going to get over the line, a little bit earlier, and then the Megan and Carrie started coming back at them. So they really used their mental strength to get over the line. And in the end, great champions. They take down the doubles and the team event in the same World Championships. Just a brilliant performance from Katie and Sophie. So I'm really pleased for them that they are able to get the title there. Let's go to the men's Scotch doubles, and this was actually a great final. It was played quite early in the days, maybe not as big a crowd as there could have been for it, but it was a brilliant performance in the end from Aaron Davies and Mike King. They found themselves quite a long way down. They were struggling against Callum Singleton and Dylan Neary in that final. And in the end, they were able to sort of find something. And then they just gave them nothing. It was just finish after finish after finish just to turn the match around. And it wasn't a case of the Northern Irish pairing crumbling. English pairing just grabbed it and said, we want this title. It was brilliant.
They did, and you probably didn't see that coming early doors because the English pairing looked really nervous. I remember Dylan missed a black for Northern Ireland very early, left it hanging over the pocket, and you kind of thought, oh well, they're not going to get back to the table. But there was some uncharacteristic errors from the English pairing, particularly in positional play, and also a few pots that you would never expect them to win, but boy, did they come up well when they needed to. They at key moments in that match, they found the right shots, the right finishes, and you saw how much it meant as well. So it was a great final to watch. I really enjoyed that. I actually, bizarrely enjoyed a lot of the tactical exchanges because the Scotch moves is a little bit slower, but I enjoyed some of the tactical exchanges as well. It was good to see kind of high IQs out there from a pool playing perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Really enjoyed quite a bit of that, to be honest with you. Great final. One last thing on the men's doubles. I just want to mention Ronan McCarthy playing with Declan Brennan, making it to the semi-finals. So that means that the 5 events he played, he won the World Championships, he won the Masters, he won the World Team Shootout, lost in the final of the World Team Championships and semi-final of the doubles. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. Almost you can't quite get your head around what he achieved, really.
Unbelievable, week of weeks, and he'll probably blame Declan for not lifting the doubles trophy as well. I mean, that's definitely incoming Declan if you're watching. But no, it was literally the greatest pool week probably of Ronan McCarthy's life. He would, but fitting, a legend of the game, and it was brilliant to see.
Yeah, he actually didn't. I was expecting it, but they lost out to Dylan Neary and Callum Singleton, and he did say he missed a few chances there. It was a few mistakes. It was probably the worst match he played in the whole competition, unfortunately. But yeah, no, great run, great performance from Dylan, great performance from Aaron and from Mike to get the title though. One final section to talk about, and it's the senior Scotch doubles. English pairing of Liam Stanley and Gareth Owen beat Maltese partnership of Anton Aquilina and Roy Karuna. Great win for Liam and Gareth, really.
Yeah, and again, these are moments that are etched in history, and it doesn't matter the section. You're a world champion, and that's extremely powerful. I didn't realise that Caruana was over 60 because he had a couple of decent results in other sections of the tournament. So I would have been interested to kind of see how he played. But a massive well done to the winning team. Unbelievable. And like I say, it's just great to see so much diversity in different sections within a World Championships.
Yeah, that was it. So that does cover all the sections that were played in the World Championships. Lots of different winners. Obviously, no apologies for us for focusing on the main men's and women's events because that for me is the big World Championships. But it's great to have those other sections there as well. Scott, is there anything before we move on to what's coming up with Ultimate Pool this week? Anything else you want to talk about with regards to the World Championships, or can we tie a bow on that and move on?
Yeah, I think let's tie a bow on it and move on. But just one final thing. What an unbelievable event to watch unfold, and it is fantastic to see a World Championships getting that level of coverage, and it was just so fantastic to watch.
Yeah, a lot of people that were there, because I'd not been to WEPF World Championships before. Back when I used to play, I'm very much from the Blackpool world, so I hadn't been to one of these before. It was great to see it. A lot of people coming up to me telling me, it's the best one they've ever been to. They really enjoyed it. I look at it from a broadcast perspective, and I think wow, we could do so much more with this. It's great to give the coverage we did, but watch out for Morocco next year. Can't wait to go and really be able to do more and more for the WEPF World Championships, assuming that I get to go over to that event. So let's do that. Let's just put a bow on to the World Championships. That is it. We'll be in Morocco in, I think it's end of May, early June in 2023 for the next one. But also there's a European Championships in Malta coming up in February, which of course we will keep you updated with. Now we need to turn our attention back to Ultimate Pool. We've had a couple of weeks off. There's been no events because of the World Championships. We can now turn our attention to what's coming up this week. And we have a cracker coming up in the pairs. The Pairs Cups continue on Monday the 31st on Free Sports at 6:30 and on the Ultimate Pool app. And take a look at this lineup. Mick Hill and Phil Harrison headline the group. Mick Hill, 6 times world champion. Phil Harrison, another legend of the game. He's a world champion. Up against Emma Cunningham and A.B. Beecham. They have 7 world titles between them. Christy Caulfield and Connor Tracy, Tom Church and Jamie McGawley. That is a great lineup for us to welcome back the pairs, Scott.
Oh, unbelievable lineup! What a cracker for Halloween. There's a lot of interesting subplots kind of over the course of that group, and unfortunately for me, you've got first pick as well.
Well, I'm going to give you the option. Do you want first pick in the pairs or the Masters? Because you're behind, I'm happy to give you it because I've got such a comfortable lead.
Because obviously Jesse's putting together the video evidence for me. I would like to keep continuity, Simon, and you may go first as continuity dictates.
Okay, I'm happy enough to go first. I actually quite like this group. I think I'm expecting Connor Tracy and Christy Caulfield to go very, very well. I really hope that Amy and Emma turn up and play some good stuff. I'll be honest, I'd love to see them go through. I really would. I think they're fantastic ambassadors for the game. Especially Emma, she does a lot for the ladies' game, really putting herself out there on the pro series. So I would love, just on a personal level, to see those guys go well. But for me, I'm going to go for the favourites for the group. It's normally you going for the favourites, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for Mick Hill and Phil Harrison. Not just because they're 2 of the biggest names in the world. Mick's been playing unbelievably well this year. Phil hasn't. But they went really well together last year. And I just think they went well last year. I don't really see them dipping this year. So I expect big things from them.
Yeah, I, as ever, expected you to go onto a bookie site and look at what the favourite was, and that's where you went. Listen, this is a group that could very well spring a surprise. And the only reason I say this is we've seen Mick in the past admit to us that he struggles at that venue. We've seen him upset by Jake Dillon Newlove in the Masters this year, although albeit his last time out he was absolutely incredible, topping the Players Championship group, playing Mark Allen in the final. And Phil Harrison looked in fine fettle his last time out, narrowly not making the final of his Players Championship group. Emma and Amy, I've lost count of the World Championships they've got between them. A formidable pairing, if ever you're going to see one. But I don't know if they've ever played. I'm not sure if they've played much as a team before. So for me, I'm going to go for Connor Tracy and Christy Caulfield to present the upset. If you know anything about your pool, they're both very good players, and they're more than capable of winning that group.
I love that there are 14 world titles in that group, and you've gone for a pairing without any of them. I think that's great. But I actually do really like Connor Tracy and Christy Caulfield. I've always been very impressed when I've seen both of them play. No idea how they're going to gel together, but we'll find out on Monday. So it wouldn't surprise me if you get that shock win, but you do need it because you are 4 behind. Okay, so that's the pairs on Monday. We've also got the Masters returning on Wednesday. We don't have a graphic for this one, so let me run you through the lineup. We have got Matt Peel taking on Elliot Glover and Gareth Potts taking on Jordan Bradley. So Gareth Potts is going to be the big headline act for this group. And Scott, I mean, you're going to get first pick, which, you probably need here.
I think I'm going to shock you here. Because I'm going to pick a player that you probably don't expect me to pick, because they've been in a group before and I didn't pick them then. But I'm going to go for Gareth Potts, Simon. Even though I've beat the guy, there's just something about him, that he looks in half decent form, half decent form. He actually probably played the best pool we've ever seen on Ultimate Pool in a day. I don't think there's any chance of an upset here whatsoever.
I'm with you. No disrespect to the other three guys there. I think Gareth is probably as big a favourite as we've had in the Masters so far, for a variety of reasons. He's one of the best of all time. He's playing, probably by his own admission, the last time we saw him, the best he's ever played. If he shows even half of that form in these long races to 8, I think he's going to be really tough to beat. When I look at the lineup against him, Jordan Bradley, who he's got first round, he's not playing on the Challenger Series. So for me, how does he cope with the arena and everything else that comes with that? And he's playing one of the legends. It's going to be a tough one, I think, for Jordan to deal with. Both Matt Peel and Elliot Glover are playing on the Challenger Series, but neither are having a great year, both middle of the pack. I'm going to go for Elliot Glover because we have seen him out in that arena before, so at least he has that experience. And if he gets through against Matt Peel, then who knows? Could he put up a shock in the final? It would be a performance of all performances for him. But in pool, anything can happen. If he gets the chances and he plays well, then who knows? We will. I guess that's the way I'm going to go. So this decision made really. So I think we've both got a favourite in each section in this one. There is more action coming up on Ultimate Pool this week as well, though we have got the Players Championship at the weekend. We're not going to have a pick on the Players Championship yet. Because we will have an Ultimate Pool show, Ultimate Pool extra show before then. So we will definitely have a pick when we do the show later on in the week after the Wednesday Masters. But just briefly, Scott, that is one of the best weekends of pool you could ever wish to look forward to.
It is literally. I don't think I've ever seen a stronger last 8 in a tournament. My head is already spinning in terms of what way would you go with a pick, because you could make a case for every single person there to win it. It's going to be, listen, if you've got an Ultimate Pool subscription, that's worth 3 months of subscription for me, just to watch that lineup in action over the course of the weekend. So I am absolutely buzzing for that. And you get to commentate on it. That's unbelievable.
I get to commentate. I get to be there. And actually, it's worth pointing out, when I say I'm very excited to be there for that event. If you are in the Stoke area or you fancy travelling up to the Stoke area, Newcastle and Lyme at the Players Pool and Snooker Lounge, it is the best lineup you will ever see for a pool tournament. It is going to be Saturday and Sunday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. It can't fail to be an unbelievable standard of pool and an unbelievable drama. So we'll go into more detail on that event later on in the week, so make sure you tune in for the next edition of Ultimate Pool Extra. Scott, before we round this one off, anything else that you want to sort of mention over the last couple of weeks, or what might come up this week?
Just, it feels bizarre to be back as business as usual, watching Ultimate Pool after the distraction of the World Championships. I think kind of the last few weeks have just been so incredible, and long may it continue. And kind of Ultimate Pool have spoiled us even further with the pool that's coming up in over the course of the next week. And I'm just so excited to get the ball rolling tomorrow night.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the World Championships were absolutely fantastic. We got some great winners, but I can't wait for this Ultimate Pool week, because, what a week we've got. The lineup we've got over this course, the 7 days we have here, it doesn't get any more special than that. And that is just the start of what is a round up to the year, which is just going to get bigger and better. And of course, we've got some wild cards that are going to be announced as well. So much going on in the next 2 months with Ultimate Pool. I can't wait, and you can't wait as well, Scott. Scott, thank you for your time as ever here on Ultimate Pool Extra, and thank you to everybody for watching or listening, of course, because Ultimate Pool Extra is now on as a podcast as well, so make sure you can listen to it there. If you're driving along, you can tune in and check it out as well, and we'll be back next week, so we will see you then.